The Melbourne Mavericks are an Australian Overwatch Contenders Series team that are completely fucked at an ownership level. And by that I mean the owner allegedly placed bets on pre-recorded matches, signed players to barely legal contracts, didn't pay those players, and he's been missing in action for the past 2 months. Seriously, nobody on the team has heard from him since August. This story is insane, and you are definitely going to want to hear more. Okay, so that owner I mentioned off the top is Mason White. In 2018, Mason bought Serenity, a player-owned org, for $1,400, and then rebranded them to the Melbourne Mavericks, a team he owns under his company Blanco Asset Management Party Limited, which sounds like a front for some mob-type shit. And things got weird almost immediately. Now here's the deal. I've been talking to a lot of people close to the team, and they don't want their names anywhere near this story. So they've asked that I keep them anonymous. According to my sources, Mason allegedly placed bets on pre-recorded matches during early seasons of the Contenders Series. Now you might be wondering, sorry, what? Well, up until June, a lot of the Contenders Series games in places like Korea and Australia were pre-recorded and then streamed later on due to time zone differences. What this means in terms of placing bets is that if you already know the outcome of a game before the general public does, and then you place a bet on that game, what you've done is just highly illegal. And according to my sources, Mason often asked for the game scores from his team and other teams, and then used the money he won from those bets to fund the Mavericks. Okay, on to the players and the contracts. None of the players are being paid. Instead, the players are given game fees, $14 for losing a map and $24 for winning a map. To be very clear, I reached out to Mason about these allegations and he got back to me pretty quickly, which I mean is cool, but you know, check in on your team, my man. Anyways, the way Mason explains it, the players were paid a salary based on the team's standing in the league. But I read that contract and it stipulates this salary as a bonus. It's not the salary in the way you and I understand a salary, it's literally a bonus. Quote, performance bonuses will be awarded to the player based off their placement in Season 3 of Overwatch Contenders Australia. These bonuses will take the form of a weekly salary for the duration of Contender Season 4 and weeks of practices leading up to the season, 10 weeks in total. The bonuses are as follows. So basically, first place you got $150, second place you got $100, third, fourth you got $75, and then fifth through eighth, if in the standings, you got $50. Okay, now in the entire Mavericks history, the team hit second in one season, fourth in another season, and then dead last in this latest season. And in speaking to former Mavericks players, this salary was rarely paid on time week to week. In this contract, it also states that Mason apparently didn't have to pay any payroll tax, the players weren't entitled to any sick leave, and I quote, the player is not covered by national employment standards. This is basically a list of rights that everyone who works in Australia gets. And I don't think that this dude gets to decide whether or not those players have these rights. And when it comes to players leaving or transferring to another team, oh my God, does it get worse. Okay, so if Mason or the Mavericks were to axe a player contract, they have to give 45 days written notice. Pretty standard stuff. But if a player wants to end a contract, I have no idea how much notice they have to give because the contract switches between 7 and 14 days multiple times. And on top of that, they have to give Mason or the Mavericks $220. And if a player wanted to transfer to a new team, that new team had to pay a transfer fee of $6,000. Okay, but here's the thing. If you read the Overwatch Contender Series rules for even 30 seconds, this $6K buyout makes absolutely no sense. Just stick with me here, all right? Now, I'm basically paraphrasing here, but if a Contender Series player wants to sign a contract with an actual Overwatch League team, the team owner needs to pay a one-time transfer fee. There is no minimum transfer fee. The maximum transfer fee will be equal to 100% of the average annual base salary plus any applicable signing bonus in the player's Overwatch League player agreement. So, for example, if the Overwatch League contract has a salary of $90,000 and a $10,000 signing bonus, then the team owner and the Overwatch League team could theoretically negotiate a transfer fee between $0 and $100,000. But the Maverick players aren't being paid anything. So according to that rule, they shouldn't have any transfer fee, let alone a $6,000 transfer fee. Now, Mason says that this specific rule only applies to a Contenders player signing with an Overwatch League team proper, and that the Contenders Series plays by a different set of rules. Well, as of recording, I haven't found a different set of rules, so okay. So let's recap this quickly. Guy buys a team in a league where no player is making more than a few thousand outside of prize money, pretty much pays them nothing, says that the team doesn't have to abide by employment law, and that the players have to pay him in order to leave. As you can imagine, this contract did not go over well, and I spoke to former Mavericks player Oily about just how fucking poorly it went.
He sent us those contracts and we worked through them for like a week with him, but whenever we actually asked for something to be changed, he would just, instead of actually changing it, he would just talk through like why it was there. It kind of got to the point where he hadn't changed anything, but the season was about to start, so we kind of had to just go with it.
Okay, so Oily isn't digging the Mavericks and he just wants to leave and play for Heist, another Australian org. Mason says, sure, just pay me that $6 grand before you go. Now, Mason and Heist went back and forth, seemingly trying to work out a deal, and they got nowhere. So then Oily actually plays for Heist for like 2 weeks because he hasn't heard a word from Mason. But hours before the Contenders Series roster lock and a game that Heist was scheduled to play, Mason sent what basically amounts to a cease and desist letter to Oily over Discord. So understandably, Oily backs off and doesn't compete in the game. But the shitty part about all of this is that this horrendous experience with an owner who clearly doesn't know what he's doing killed Oily's love for Overwatch. Yeah, he stopped playing and competing entirely. Listen, this story is insane, and unfortunately, it's impacted a player's career. Now, I know that we all thought we were past this point of esports' history, but it seems like this shit is still happening.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring that notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit up our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook pages.